Hello everyone and welcome back to my The Young and Restless 24 YouTube channel. I hope you guys are having a wonderful day. Before we start, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Esther is at Crimson Lights, dropping Nick and Summer's order off at their table. She can see they need their caffeine, and they tell her she's the stylish. Esther admits she's been detracted from pecan pie muffins by her worries about Sharon. The master hasn't been responding to her calls, and that's not like her. Nick claims she's just out at a gym. I hope she's enjoying herself, Esther says, snippily. After she walks off, Chance arrives and announces there's no trace of Phyllis. Her auto is at the athletic club and there's no record of her getting a lift. Nick fills him in on the call that Phyllis made to Summer and Prodigies if she could really be out on a business road trip. Summer doubts this since her mama would have taken Daniel along with her. She wouldn't have gone from draining him about work to taking off without a phone call. The Bobby gets a call attesting there's no record of Sharon checking into any gyms in Sedona. When they debate whether Sharon would take off or lie about it, Summer reminds her pater that she just did that many weeks ago. Nick says she was cured at the time. His son speculates commodity could have touched off her, but he's not induced. She suggests Sharon could just be trying to avoid him. He doesn't buy that. Moreover, they bandy how upset Sharon was and Summer tells her pater what a great father he is. Nick doesn't know where to look for answers, but he's 99.9% sure that whatever is passing isn't good. Daniel arrives at Billy's place and explains that he hasn't entered any response from his mama. He and Nick didn't want to worry him history, but it doesn't make sense that his mama would take off on some Riddle trip and give Summer a strange call. There's commodity off about this whole thing. This leaves a lot of questions. The abbot explains that Phyllis was constantly calling him while he was in Paris. It makes no sense that she'd evaporate when he started calling back. Daniel points out that Sharon is also gone. They faded around the same time. They both believe it's further than cosmic coexistence that two women who detest each other would evaporate at the same time and also call in at the same time on burner phones. This all seems like some vengeance plan. Phyllis claimed to both of them that she'd moved on from that and they believe her. But if it isn't vengeance, what's passing? They see and imagine Sharon and Phyllis hugging this out. Billy suggests the women could have been taken together. Whoever did it probably had no idea what they were letting themselves in for and will soon be soliciting for their internees to be taken down. Jordan and Ian were the only people crazy enough to pull commodity like this, and they're both dead. Summer calls her family. She explains she's with her pater. And Chance at Crimson Lights, and she's sure he'll want to hear what the Bobby has to say. Once Daniel gets off the line, Billy tells him he has a lot riding on Phyllis, so he wants to go with him. Phyllis wakes up whining on the settee in the basement of the medical clinic. She had a good night's sleep thanks to Sharon not drooling on her shoulder. When she checks for coffee, she says Sharon's formerly done a number on it. There was no alarm this morning, which has her wondering if their host wanted them to sleep in. Sharon has been flipping through books and looking for suggestions about who their prisoner might be. Knowledge of that may be the only armament they have. Phyllis doubts they would leave commodity around to reveal their identity. Sharon is sure the position must be some kind of indication. Connecting the blotches, Phyllis whispers that the voice knows about her internal issues. I suppose we're on the last stop of your bipolar express, she suggests. Sharon thinks their prisoner could be a croaker or patient. However, Sharon wants her to shut up, if Phyllis isn't going to help. The redhead suggests that digging for an identity could just incense the voice. Sharon claims they can use any information they find to get out of there. Claiming she has a better idea, Phyllis says they need to bargain. She reminds her that they're the mothers of Victor's grandchildren and the Newmans have deep pockets. Everyone has a price and they only need to have it named. Just sticking them in a room together can't be the price. That would make no sense. Sharon is still determined to find out why they're there. Not concerned about that, Phyllis would be happy to hand off a pile of plutocrat to end this. They dispute about Sharon being on both sides of the padded wall. Sharon insists this is no typical hijacking. Someone is trying to force them to face their history. It could be someone who wants them to learn from their miscalculations. Phyllis says that will no way be. Sharon is sure that this is the work of someone who hates how important they detest each other and may have been affected by their conflicts in the history. Although she's not criminating anyone, Sharon doesn't suppose it's far broad to assume that whoever is behind this could be a relative. Incontinently, Phyllis takes this as a suggestion that one of her children could be responsible for this. She thinks this is insane, but it makes sense to Sharon in a crooked way. They've been watching them attack each other for times. Phyllis thinks that Sharon should be in a cell for the rest of her life because of what she did to Daniel. Grasping this, Sharon argues that the kiddies may have realized Phyllis will no way drop this, so this is their way to save her from herself by locking them up to sort this out. Offended, Phyllis declares that Sharon is the one who needs saving and has Nick on speed dial for it. Turning it around, Phyllis reminds Sharon of what Faith has been through. Perhaps she's trying to educate her assignment? Sharon says her son doesn't have the coffers for this. Also, Phyllis suggests Mariah could have done it. When Sharon shoots that down, Phyllis nominates Nick. He must be sick of their fighting and he might want them to eventually work effects out. Dismissing this as ridiculous, Sharon says there's no way Nick would want them soliciting for their lives. They start fighting about who he cares about further until Sharon turns the possible blame back on Phyllis's children. Back at Crimson Lights, Nick asks Summer how effects are going with Chance. She explains that they're being civil to one another, but it's hard for her to be with him after the way he treated Daniel. Her father reminds her that he was just doing his job. She'll concede it and she's always respected how devoted he's to his job, but she wanted his support. Rather, he felt like the adversary. But he has gone out of his way to help, and that means a lot. As they talk about Phyllis, Nick urges her to be positive, sure that she'll come firing back into city. His son can't shake her recollections of what happened to Heather. They all prompted Daniel to be positive, but look at how that turned out. Nick will concede all that, but for the time being, they need to shoot out positive energy. Billy and Daniel join them as Chance returns. The Bobby explains that there's no record of Phyllis taking a lift and there's no record of Sharon at any gym. They principally have no idea what's going on. Billy explains that he and Daniel suspect Sharon and Phyllis are together and not by choice. They can't imagine who would want to go after both of them. They continue assuming and wondering if this is all arbitrary or if the only people involved are the two women. When Esther comes out with a cash for Nick, she asks if he's heard from her master. She has an important appointment to have her coffee grounds read. Sharon was supposed to cover for her. He assures her she'll get there and she runs off to check with the other workers to see if they can cover. Chance gets a call and walks off. Again, Nick urges his son to keep up the positive energy. Chance returns and explains Sharon's auto was set up in the parking lot at work. He asks them for the figures of the burner phones to see if they can track a general position. This is starting to sound like unsanctioned disquisition to Daniel. Back in the basement, screaming she's had enough, Phyllis hops over and threatens to take the gloves off. Pointing her fritters at Sharon, she tells her this is all her fault. Screaming back, Sharon admits she went too far. Phyllis accuses her of constantly tearing her family piecemeal and also soliciting for remission. Everyone differently lets her off the hook and she's tired of it. We cannot let this turn into a war, Sharon insists, suggesting they're playing into their prisoners' hands. Do they want us to eventually get on, or do they want us to kill each other? Phyllis asks. She'd like to know because she's at the end of her rope. Yelling at the intercom, she declares she's ready to fight until only one of them is alive. Shaking her head, Phyllis doesn't know what she's able of, but she doesn't want to be trapped in a room with a woman she despises. All she wants to know is what the wind-up could be. Grabbing a president, she explains she's going to smash a window and scream until someone hears her. Trying to wrest it from her hands, Sharon complains she's going to get them killed. Soliciting for the president, Phyllis insists she has to do commodity. When Sharon reminds her it's the middle of downtime, she lets it drop. They sit down and Sharon apologizes for criminating her kiddies. But whoever is behind this is someone who knows them and hates them. Glaring up at the intercom, Phyllis asks if they're entertained by this. "I'm not then to be entertained," explains the voice. "The game is the only thing that matters and it's time to continue." "What's worth everything but costs nothing?" the voice prompts. The women look at each other.